Hello and welcome to Intersol Russia's new course, Teaching Online, CELTA. My name is Stephen Ligoff. This is episode 4.5, a carry-on from the last video, Bare Necessities, I think we called it. This is the basics of production. And unfortunately today, I look very much like a sheep. So I apologize for my facial fuzz. Now, we've talked at length about how to conduct yourself around the students, how to promote the production, how to get them to speak. We're going to look today about managing yourself in said production. So we're going to look at, essentially, the basics of you as a teacher in the sense of the production stage. To begin with, LTTT. Throughout your teaching career, you're going to hear this term a lot, LTTT. Limiting teacher talking time. And we've, again, done a lot of work on this in the past few videos. We've looked at these concepts of allowing the student to take the reins, of how the student is meant to approach, how you get your student to make that approach. But here today, we're talking about you. We're going to talk about how to do it. So, don't rely on spoken explanations of grammar. You can talk to your student, fantastic. Your student can talk back, fantastic. Now, students also need that written help. Okay, of course, online speaking is your primary method of communication. Not just that, but writing is difficult. If you have Skype, you can talk, you can chat over Skype, you can email them written examples as well. They need that mix of spoken and written so that they can see as well as hear, get the full realistic picture. And these are methods of essentially grammar. Grammar should be where you focus this here. Should be inductive, allowing the students to formulate their own reasoning, their own grammatical rules. We've talked about this before, very simple, very easy. How? We've not talked about what you do with it, how you react to it. Let's look at this pedagogy. So, allow a student to do the work. You assign particular sentences. Let's say you have Johnny to the park with dog. Those two spaces, they have to fill it out. Let's say you have a whole 10 of those that the student has to work out. Allow them to work it out. All of them, every single one. If they are an intermediate student, we can't talk about beginners in this sense. Beginners should be having one or two, and then repeat the pedagogy. Intermediate students should have 10. Advanced students shouldn't have tutors. So we're looking at that central sense. Customize it to your student's level, 2 or 10. When they've done all the work, mark it. Mark it immediately. Tell them which lines are wrong, and then comes the important bit. Don't tell them why they're wrong. Ask them why. Ask them why. Ask them, maybe take another tact, maybe take another route. If this didn't work, try another route, right? So, only then, after they've tried again, give them the answer. If you know the student, you could stretch it out longer. For example, I often have students who realistically are unable to use articles in a real sense because they are Russian students. The Russian language does not have articles. Terrible. So, with a lack of articles, they just don't write with articles. So you have to sit down and go, what goes there? They know immediately I'm talking about an article because we have that rapport, they know their problem, and immediately every time they know which article to use. Allow them to do that deductive reasoning, that inductive reasoning. Allow them to figure it out on their own. Allow them to do that working within themselves once they know the basics. And only then do you step in. If they can't do it, say that's wrong. Now what happens when they get it right? Or even if they get it wrong and you do the explanation. Now this is where most teachers fail. Most teachers fail in this stage because they go, all right, they got the right answer. Or I've given them the answer, now they have the answer. No. No, 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 no. Never, ever, ever stop there. The greatest folly of teachers is that point. Ask them how. Why? Why does it go there? How did you do it? Students often guess. If they guess right, they think that you'll look over it and that their education will take the back step. Never let this happen. Ask them how they did it, why this works. If they can't explain it again, and now you know how to focus on this work in the future. If you give them the explanation, ask them how, why that works, explain the theory again. You may explain this grammatical theory again and again and again and again. Good. Good. If they can't get it, they need that extra assistance. Always make sure that they have that option to explain their reasoning. Because if they can't explain their reasoning, if they can't explain why that word goes there, you failed in your job as a teacher. Because either they're guessing or they're working on relative identity, the relative identity of that line. They think it sounds right, which is good. What if they think it sounds wrong in another sense? Again, education has failed. Make sure that they know what they're doing, that they know how to work it out. Past that, realistically, sorry about that dour note, it's just a very tricky sticking point for teachers. Now we'll talk about your interaction with the students. You can explain something 3 times, sitting like this, or you can explain something once with hand gestures. Most of your students will be children. Hand gestures keep them entertained, they keep them attentive. What I do, of course, when I'm doing these videos is I have a pen. I gesticulate with my pen. I go from one place to another place. Hand gestures fill in linguistic barriers, and they provide something fun to look at, not just fun, but movement, for your students to look at and pay attention. Over the page. And this is another sticking point that I'm glad we're doing another video for. Informality of grammatical correction. Don't be a terrible human being. I don't want to swear, but don't be a terrible human being to your students. They are students, they are this is ESL classes, this isn't their first language. They will make mistakes based on their ability. And they will make mistakes based on English, and you have to make sure that you accommodate for both of these scenarios. What am I talking about? I'm talking about making sure that they are confident enough to have this production and for you to understand what's going on, to allow them that production. This next bit is about self-restraint in a strategic sense. There is a difference between written and spoken English. We know that. The main issues that get in the way, and, but, because, and other slang. And, but, or because can never start a sentence. It makes no sense. In written English. In spoken English, it is perfectly acceptable and often used. Prodigiously. Never, ever interrupt your student from starting a sentence with and if it is spoken. Make sure that they understand the difference to a point, but your job is to provide them with the concept of communicative English. They need to be able to speak English, not write essays.